My name is Bob Babbitt, and welcome to Babbittville Classic Rewind, a collection of my favorite interviews with some of the legends of endurance sports that have aired over the past 3 decades. I'm hoping you will enjoy these interviews as much as I do. As always, endurance lives here.
Let's go back to 1968, the Olympics.
Okay.
In Mexico.
Right.
I was sitting in my hometown on the riverbank, listening on a transistor radio to the final of the 1500 meters, and really, let's face it, was down to Jim Ryan and Kip
Keino. Yeah.
Kip Keino, and of course, it was a great race, and the static was coming in, and I was so energized, and I sort of listened to the race. Keino won it, and Ryan was second. And I went away, and I thought, I just said to myself, that is my dream. That is a goal. I'd love to go to the Olympics. I was so energized. Well, 4 years later, in 1972, I lined up in the first round of the 1500 meters. On my right was Jim Ryan. On my left was Kip Keino. How about that for a dream?
Welcome, boys.
Thanks.
Having both you guys in studio, man. And another guy's joining us from his lovely palatial estate in Minnesota somewhere. We could tell you where it is, but we'd have to kill you. Greg LeMond, 3-time winner of the Tour de France. Mr. LeMond, how you doing, Greg?
I'm doing great.
Did you ever train with these boys?
Oh, yeah. I've trained with, with Scott Tinley quite a bit. Scott Molina a little. I think we did 1 day of riding. He killed me.
Your memory's worth a lot.
There you go. There you go.
I remember going for a ride with Greg one time.
Yeah?
He was with one of his gearhead guys, and
Yeah.
I started tagging along, and we were out in the back country, and we turned around, and there was like 400 people who were following us.
Because you were with Greg LeMond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go, who are those guys, Greg? And you're like the Pied Piper. Are those your buddies? And I don't know.
Greg's like, I don't know who these guys are. Where'd they come from? Hey, Greg's got a new bike out, new titanium LeMond. Now, when's the titanium come out?
It'll be out in November.
Ah.
We had a Trek company had their big, instead of doing the Las Vegas show, they did their own show last week, and we kind of had the whole product line of LeMond, Fisher, Trek all together. And they brought about 400, 500, 600 dealers in. So we're adding 2 titanium bikes to my line. So
Cool. And your line's doing well?
very well, yeah. Mainly road bikes. But it's they're actually one of their fastest growing lines in the Trek line. But still, it's still a small relative sales compared to, say, the mountain bikes. But it's coming back. I think people enjoy. It's kind of like snowboarders, skiers going to snowboarding, coming back to skiing, and road riders going to mountain biking, and they realize they like to do both.
Right. All three of you guys really were pioneers in your sports, ST and Skid in triathlon, and to a certain degree, you're almost like human lab rats in terms of the type of training and racing you did, not really knowing, probably just trying to figure out what to do as you went. Looking back on it now, how would you change the way you trained back then or raced?
Would you choose not to get shot, Greg? Or?
Who are you asking?
I'm asking all you guys.
Not to get shot.
That shot thing was bad. That was bad. No, but for Greg, when you were back training, you were obviously following what other people were doing. What was good? What was bad? What did you, looking back on it now, what would you have changed?
I think I was fortunate in my career to have some really good coaches, and even starting with Eddie B. back in the 70s, he came with a physiology background. So I started getting really good training advice, but I always kind of read my own books and kind of dissected things the way I thought I worked best for me. But then I had a coach, Cyril Guimard, who again was training from going to the sports medicine school, and then I had Paul Coakley, which was the guy that probably educated me the most about physiology. But he was Swiss, and he was so regimented in his training, and I think one of the things I learned at the end of my career, because I was racing so poorly, but I actually studied it even more and sought out advice by other leading, trainers and physiologists and that. And I think the number one thing, if you're not on drugs, is recuperation. And I think I sometimes would get into a program of just methodical programming where you kind of plan your rest days and recuperation, but I think the best athletes, I was always good with that, really know their body, and when they're overtrained, you don't make any improvement when you're overtrained.
Right.
And the secret is to feel, good at least 2-3 days a week. And if you're not, you're kind of stale. And I use a watt measurement at the end of my career, and that's the number one thing. If I could have had that from the beginning of my career, where I could record race after race, actually know my output,
right,
know where I stood when I won the Tour de France, and if I got shot, how far down I was. Well, it would even from a training point of view, if you're sick and out of for some reason out of the sport for a period, you wouldn't even attempt to race a race unless you had a certain given power output that would let you finish a race.
Right.
How
about it, Skid?
Let me ask Greg one more question, because I grew up in California, and I heard about Greg when he was just a teenager. And can you tell us, Greg, what you were doing, how much you were actually riding when you were like 16, 17 years old, when you were
I was going against like the coach's trend, and I would train about, I'd say in mileage, 250, 300 miles a week.
This is at what age?
At 16, 17,
yeah.
18. But as I got more educated about training, I was, in pro cycling, there were guys that, I'd do 30 hours a week, and I found no matter what, if I did a quality week, 20 hours to 22 hours is really tops. And I would do periods where I'd have a finishing session of like a 4-week period of training where I'd top out at 35 hours. But the reality, when you race like 3-4 days a week professionally, you're recovering in between, and you can't pile in those, horrendous hours in a week. But, I was probably, I'd say 15 to 16 hours, 14, 12 hours as a junior a week. Now, it doesn't sound a lot, but
that's
Chris Boardman, when I met him, he set the hour record, won the Olympics in the pursuit, and he did that on no more than 12 hours a week.
Right.
But he was at a very specific, and the more specific the event, the more specific your training, the less you need to have all these variation. I believe with like a triathlete has to train so many different sports that overtraining's got to be a big danger.
Well, and you two guys, Scott Molina, Scott Tinley, really were sort of the instigators of pushing the mileage, you think? I mean, in terms of you guys would train with each other and do long rides and long runs and sort of pile them on each other all the time.
Well, I don't think we did that on purpose.
No, I'm just saying that was to get better. Yeah.
We didn't know any better, for one.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying.
There was no technology available. There were no heart rate monitors.
There was coaching.
There was no wattages. There were no coaches. There were no.
That was the way cycling was too.
Right.
Really.
That ruffle of
this Molina with his freaking
pulling a beer out of his plastic bag. You can't drink on air, actually.
Oh, duels.
But there was no precedence as far as technological information as to who had done what and what worked and what didn't work.
Right.
And I can remember asking Scott in 1982. I go, what do you think? And he says, well, this is what an elite level marathoner does. This is what the best swimmers in the world do, and this is what the top cyclists do. So I'm going to combine all three.
Right.
And many of his training weeks were on. He can address this, but I believe they were well over 50 hours a week.
Wow.
And of course, part of that was because he was in a marriage he didn't really want to be.
He was ready.
A lot of time he didn't want to be around the house. But of course, I got sucked into it because I lived down the street, and I was like, all right, if I want to be like him, I got to hang a train like him.
And your family liked that a lot too.
They didn't like it a real lot, but.
I just got better the more I trained.
Right.
And I found that from probably age 15 when I was a swimmer.
Right.
The more I trained, the better I got.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have a problem.
There wasn't a point of diminishing returns where you felt like...
Not at first.
Yeah.
After about 5 years of it, there certainly was. But it seems like when you're young, especially when you're a teenager. That's why I was asking Greg. When you're a teenager, you can just do anything.
Right.
I could have done 5... I think also, maybe you guys can even kind of correct me or whatever, but I do think when you're when you're doing say an Ironman or the intensity pace would be a constant, so it's kind of like you can regulate your output all the time, and you probably do get better with a certain amount of overtraining because you probably utilize fats better. You get an efficiency there. And when you have to start trying to combine super high intense intervals, that's kind of the danger. Like a cyclist might try to add an interval day or 2 intervals a week. And so if you try to combine high distance and intervals, and that's usually what kind of fries the people. And but I just don't know how you guys do it. I mean, honestly, when I think of those hours and whew.
Well, and then a lot of that obviously is the running has to be the most dangerous part because of the pounding that goes along with that.
Yeah, but like Scott said, you know, when you're 16, 18, 20, 22 years old, you can get away with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but you guys were doing that up until...
And not really feel it.
Right.
And well, it became a specific thing, too. You know, we would ride some of these 400-mile weeks,
right,
and our average speed would be 16 or 18 miles an hour, and that would include stops at donuts and all those kinds of
looking for cars.
For health foods, and running errands and whatnot. But, of course, you come to a race, and you try and average 22 or 24 miles an hour, and you've only been training 16. And,
right.
You know, you don't have the sport specificity that Greg's referring to.
Yeah, right. So the 30 hours that he's doing are pretty intense, or pretty sporty.
I found if I wanted to have the quality, there's kind of an analogy that I always use, and I try to, if I talk to people, and even riders when I was racing, and even cyclists, and most of the time, there's the series of the classics, say the Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix. They're very long races, 170 miles, take 7-8 hours, and riders would get in there, and you'd have a portion of riders that are dominant, but there's always a large portion that they go into these races, and they're dropped after, say, 120 miles. And most riders would come back and say, "Geez, I only made it 200K, so I got to go back and train longer." But the reality, they weren't getting dropped in cycling. They weren't getting dropped because they couldn't do the endurance. They were getting dropped because their anaerobic threshold, their lactate line was too low. Their ability to do high intensity output was too low. So that was getting them dropped. But their thought process was,
I got to go do more miles.
More miles.
Well, but that's sort of that whole mentality. I remember Alberto Salazar was on here once, and he talked about when he was a 10,000 meter runner that he was the best marathoner in the world. And as soon as he started thinking of himself as a marathoner and started substituting quantity for quality, he started going backwards.
Right. I've used that just because from an observation is most of the 10K runners, they go out and do their very best one.
The first one or second one.
They start piling the miles on because now they're a marathon runner and their performance actually suffers.
Right. And we're seeing the same thing with Ironman. Someone like a Luke Van Lierde jumps in, and a lot of the sprint people or Olympic distance people come in and they have a good Ironman their first and second time out, or they blow up. But a lot of them do pretty well the first time out.
Let me say one thing too. I've heard, seen coaches that I just still remember one coach that had the East German training secrets or the training programs.
Right.
And so he thought, well, I'm just going to duplicate those, and I'm going to have our riders riding incredibly well. But the one thing in the 70s, what the East Germans were notorious for, were anabolic steroids. And one training program on drugs, a completely different training program, natural. And that's basically, these doctors who do the cycling teams, Dr. Ferrari, Dr. Conconi, it's well documented is that, their training knowledge is okay and moderate, but their knowledge of chemistry is exquisite.
Now, Greg,
they balance these guys on a day-to-day basis so they can handle a huge workload.
Right. When you go back to the tour, which you do every year, what surprises you? What changes have you seen in the cyclists and in the sport itself?
Well, I mean, I think I witnessed a dramatic change in the sport in the early 90s. I saw the speeds of the Tour de France immediately come up in 91 and 92, and it was usually the same group of riders that had the same doctors were dominating. Honestly.
What a coincidence.
It was shocking, the difference. I mean, can you imagine, I won the Tour de France in 1990, my team won the team classification, and in 2 years and 3 years later, we weren't capable of finishing riders in the Tour de France. And my problem is not that. I had a health problem, but I think the introduction of EPO, growth hormone, testosterone into the peloton at that time in a scientific way elevated the speeds, and if you weren't on it, you weren't competing. You weren't competitive.
Now, in triathlon, you guys feel the same thing, or is it harder to observe there?
Well, I mean, obviously, what Greg is referring to is very prevalent, and it's one of the major problems with sports, professional, elite, and Olympic, across the board.
Right.
And not specifically in former third world countries, East Germany, but probably worse in America because, and unrealized because of our adherence to science and and the better economies, and these drugs all cost a lot of money, and of course,
and the value of a gold medal.
But I look back on my career and I think about all the things that I'm thankful for, but probably the absolute top of the list is that I got out before I had to make those kinds of moral decisions.
Right.
Not that I would ever be tempted, because I want to be able to sleep with myself at night, but I know it exists. In triathlon. I mean, I don't surmise, but I absolutely know for a fact, and it's a sad state.
Cycling is just horrendous right now.
It's
difficult because the saddest part is the riders. I witnessed how our team was torn apart. I'm saying these same guys won the Tour de France as a team in 1990, and we never had a doctor on the team. The riders, Roger was totally against any kind of medical advice because it would imply drug use.
Sure.
And we were also, at the same time, the sponsors were like putting tremendous pressure on the coach to get performance because they wanted results.
Absolutely.
So he would pressure the riders. And then he wouldn't believe that these riders were just not training hard enough, so he'd have them train harder, which would
put them in a hole.
Reverse effect, get them even more overtrained. And I had riders leave the team in '93 to find a team that would find, have a medical program, and that's because they had a wife, they had a kid, and they weren't. And these guys, most of the guys don't graduate from high school or go to college, and it's our only way of making a living. And it's a very difficult situation. In today's cycling, with the power of the drugs, it would be very hard to stay. You would have to really make this decision, either you're going to do it or not, and most likely you wouldn't be that competitive.
You know what I wonder with the in the Tour, do they test just the people who end up on the podium, or they test everybody, Greg?
They test podium. I'm actually not aware of how the exact. When I was racing, they would test the top 3 and 2 at random every day, and I'm not. I believe that's still the way it's going. But the fact is, everything that's making them go fast is undetectable. So drug tests are only going to catch something that if somebody takes too much of testosterone goes above their natural limit, they would get busted. But it's a sport. I just read a whole deal on the Olympics. It's their number one problem is legitimacy in the sport again.
Right.
And that's for every sport.
Yeah, that's what's so hard is when you watch it, you really wonder who's clean and who isn't. And I know Mark Ziegler writes for the San Diego Union Tribune and covers the Olympics. He just feels everybody's dirty. He just feels it across the board.
And it's sad because the guy who isn't getting any credit.
Right, for what they're doing.
Right.
Again, 3-time Tour de France champion Greg LeMond, 2-time Ironman champion Scott Tinley. The Terminator, Scott Molina, 1988 Ironman champion.
Age group winner.
Age group champion at the LA Triathlon today. He dominated the 40-year-old division. Oh, and Barb Lindquist and Chris McCormick came away with $20,000 apiece. Molina's going, why didn't I have that type of prize purse when I was around? Gail Indurain and LeMond and Kiefel down there. Did you talk to them at all about this year's tour and what the mindset needs to be to win that thing?
I talked to Miguel a little bit about it. That's funny. I picked him up at the airport, and he asked me what I'd been doing, and I said that because I had just gotten to Texas literally just before he did. Told him that I had just finished up a camp in the Pyrenees, and he said to me, my Spanish isn't that great, and he doesn't speak English, so this is sort of in Spanish. He says, well, what were you doing in the Pyrenees? And I said, I was doing a training camp. I said, we're going to try and win the Tour de France. He looked at me like I was crazy.
In studio, Scott Molina, Scott Tinley, online with us from Minnesota, staying up very late, Mr. Greg LeMond. Hey, Greg, before I want to make sure that we don't forget to mention, besides the new LeMond Titanium that's going to be coming out from Trek very shortly, you also have a new line of LeMond stuff from Target. That'll be available at Target. That's right. Coming up, it's lining up. It's a high-end line, September 18th, right?
Well, it's a line of accessories I helped design for a higher end.
Way too high for you, Tinley. Tinley can't afford that stuff.
I want to walk into a Target and see Greg LeMond sitting there. My life will be complete. In the corner, in the back, with nobody around him, twiddling his thumb.
Eating a Philly cheesesteak.
I'll go, oh my God, what is wrong with our society?
Molina used to actually cook in a Target, I think. Is that what you... Okay.
Yeah, I worked at the grill for 6 months.
At Target?
Yeah, you got free food if you work there.
See?
That's why I took that
in
job.
Pittsburgh, California.
Concord, neighboring.
I've got film of that, too. You wait for the...
You got video of Molina flipping burgers back then?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yeah. That is good. That is good. So that comes out September 18th. What's the line, Greg? What type of stuff?
Well, it's pumps, locks, helmets, basic.
What kind of pumps? I mean, for bicycles, for other parts, or anatomical pumps, or...
Oh, listen to you. Tinley. Tinley can use that.
They're pumps, milk feeding pumps.
There we go. There we go.
It's a complete line. It's going to be their kind of pro, their a pro level, pro shop level line in the Target store. So we'll have basically all the accessories you need for, riding your bike.
Cool. And the other thing that Greg just launched is the RevMaster, a indoor cycling program that started in July.
That's with Stairmaster. And,
he's a busy guy, St.
What's that?
I was going to say, Greg's a busy guy.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I'd rather be busy than I'm never bored. So even if I didn't have this, I have a lot of fun things to do.
And how old are the kids now, Greg?
I got 16-year-old, 13-year-old, and a 11 in a month. My youngest is a daughter, so she's going to be 11 in about a month.
And are they athletic at all, or what are they into?
Yeah, we're a weird family. We're not into sports. Well, I'm totally into sports. I'm into recreational sports. I do
fishing.
All sports, but now our kids are really snowboarders, skateboarders, and we go surfing a couple times a year. And
well, what are you guys doing living in Minnesota then? I mean,
I don't know.
Get your butt out here to San Diego.
In 5 or 6 years, I got to have a place in Hawaii because I want to be there half the year. I want to be Montana skiing half the year, and that's the way I want to.
He's building this huge resort, so we have a place to go in the winter.
I'm not building our huge resort. It's a huge resort that I have property.
I know about that. I'm into that.
You see, you're into that, but you ain't sharing because we're going. We get to go there.
You guys can come up. It's going to be a great year. New ski area in Montana.
All right.
So it's I'm busy, but I'm trying to balance it. And I might have a potential cycling sponsor for a professional team in Europe. So
really,
does that mean you're going to start back racing again?
Yeah, I'm racing again. I'm gonna get in shape and try to come back.
See, Molina and Tinley are still racing, man. They're going after this stuff.
I wouldn't call it racing. It's more like, well, for him it's
do it again.
Molina's serious about this stuff.
202?
You guys really never stopped.
Did you go 202 today?
Yeah, I went 202. But I did stop. Oh, don't say we didn't stop.
Yeah, that's
Shit.
true.
I stopped.
You did stop for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Exercising.
You were almost as big as me. You were like a mobile home. Not that big.
Nah, not sort of Winnebago size, but more.
That's me.
Oh, man. That hurt. My back still hurts from that one. Oh, God.
That's tough. I mean, both Scots, how old are you guys?
I'm 33 now.
I'm 40 and happy about it.
In dog years or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like an old car, though, Greg. You don't look at the age, you look at the mileage.
That's true.
Oh, you got way too much mileage. You got a lot of mileage.
But well maintained.
You're about 90, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
50 hours a week for all those years, man. You might be 90.
Yeah, but we're learning now. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like we made a lot of mistakes, but we've learned in the past couple of years so many things. That,
I think everybody is. I mean, there's a lot more published. I mean, there's just a lot more knowledge.
Published? No, it's more like, all of a sudden you just kind of roll down the road and you go, what the hell am I doing this for? So you go home and take a nap.
Well, I keep flirting with I want a cross-country ski race, and then I go, God, do I want to kill myself? It's just like...
That's a great sport. And you know what? Actually, you're pretty good at that, I've heard, too.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, they got a master's program.
I never roller ski or get enough fitness to actually race, though. I don't want to go out there and be dead last.
It's all right. No, I'm being dead last.
So I'm into fun sports, downhill skiing or fly fishing, and just a little bit of surfing and a little bit of golf. Where You just have a good time. And I ride my bike, a couple days a week in the summer and lift weights and minimal fitness, but
And no more car racing?
no.
Remember the car racing?
Money drain.
That is a
Money
big
hole.
black pit, baby. You can buzz a lot of money into a pit on
Well, I
that.
kept hearing about that, but I always thought, yeah, you can get sponsors. Well, and I had some good sponsors for 2 years, and they covered half the budget. And the minimal pro series is a lot of money, and to go above that is just huge budgets. And what I realized is that very few people actually are getting sponsors. It's mom and dad that are
Right.
basically
They're funding it.
feeding the meter there. So it's hard to compete when you got very wealthy families that were spending unlimited funds to have their kids make sure they race fast.
Well, if you should think about approaching Bob Babbitt and Competitor Publishing. And
Oh,
they got
yeah.
17 or 18 publications
Yeah, that's
down
no
there
problem.
very
I
fast.
was thinking of it.
Yeah. Let's go back to talking training. Skid, when did you get back in the racing? Was that just the last year or so?
No, I dabble every now and then. I think I had 95 off, 96 off, 97.
What was that last Ironman? When you were
97, I did
off.
a little. 98, I did the Ironman.
Yeah, you finished it that year.
Squeaked under 11 hours.
There you go.
Yeah.
Actually, I was talking about with Tony Richardson the other day. He says, I was riding with Skid, we're on the Queen Highway, and we got to Kauai High, and Skid goes, I'm turning right here. Can I borrow $5?
What year was that? Who knows?
I don't know. But
Yeah. I had a lot of DNFs there.
yeah. Well, good man. There's a good reason.
Yeah.
You had the best line ever.
Oh, what's that?
That was the line in Chicago. People are like, well, how come you don't do Ironman anymore? I said, have you ever been there? It's an awful way to spend the day.
That is the most impressive one-day event
Oh,
I've ever seen.
LeMond's been there.
The 95 or 96
Yeah.
I was there, but it was an incredible event. It made me realize I'll never do it.
Right. And beforehand,
it's so hard.
yeah.
It's just in order to do it, you've got to be like a full-time professional.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of recreational athletes that do it, but
Yeah, they're not recreational when they get ready for that event.
oh no, I mean you have to commit your life to it, and
It's amazing the number of people who are so enthralled by that distance right now.
Yeah.
I mean, Ironman Canada sold out in 8 hours?
Right.
For
For next year.
For
The day
2001.
after this year's race, people staggered down at 6 a.m. to stand. Actually, they stayed in line like all night and started registering that morning for next year's race, and it sold out that day.
Well, Bob, did you know that people fly there
Yes. Oh yeah. To
go
stand in line.
to go stand in line for that?
Yeah.
I have to say it's probably the coolest one-day event I've seen.
It is a pretty
Yeah.
cool one-day event.
And I mean, I could see why if somebody hasn't done a competitive sport in their life, like, if you were like I've raced 19 years, 14 years professionally.
Yeah.
I've been there, done that. But if somebody who was a good swimmer, a good bike rider, a good runner, but had to go to college, had to go to work, and I mean that's the master cycling division in cycling is the most popular.
Right.
Because guys in their 40s are saying, hey, I've done the professional career thing. I want to have an athletic challenge. And I have to say, when you get around 40, you got to figure out something to keep yourself in shape.
Yeah.
Or else you're going to keep deteriorating and gaining in pant size. So
That's why you move to Hawaii and you surf every day, Greg.
Right.
now that's the type of thing I'm talking. That's the sport.
There we go. There we got that surf thing
Good
going.
exercise, but it's adrenaline. It's fun, and you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah. You don't get that sweaty. You're in the ocean. It's not that big a deal.
It's the best. I think that's to me the best sport I've ever.
Just don't tell anybody. It's already too crowded out here.
I know, but you got to go to deserted.
Yeah.
We were down in Baja in June, and we were on a beach with 2 people, so it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, that's northern Baja, near San Diego.
Yeah, that's-
it's La Jolla. So
Don't be naming names on the radio about surf spots. Jeez
That's
Louise,
why
I
I
spent
said
my
it's
whole
Baja,
life
but
trying
it's
to hide these
actually San
places.
Diego, so I'm keeping everybody up in San Diego. Right? Nobody should go down there.
That's right.
So, Skid, you're in town here from New Zealand, and now that you're coaching over in New Zealand and primarily doing mostly coaching people over email. But doing EPO. Coaching people with EPO, no. Coaching people over email.
Yeah, there's a lot of coaches out there doing that.
Yeah.
I don't coach a lot of people. I hope never to coach a lot of people. Just doing it on a personal level.
Right.
Just having a few athletes that I can give some time and energy to.
And then you're working with with running a program over there as well?
Yeah, I have a little gym and a little pool.
You have your own gym?
Yeah, I have my own gym. Yeah.
What's it called?
Yeah, we're at New Zealand.
This is in Christchurch.
Wow.
You'd be interested to know, Greg, that I have surf 20 meters out in front of my house, and great skiing an hour's drive away.
Is it good surfing in Christchurch?
Yeah.
Is the water warm?
The water's not that warm. But it's warmer than Minnesota in the winter, I can tell you that.
Trout streams in New Zealand.
It's not crowded.
Oh, you probably heard about the fly fishing in New Zealand.
Yeah, I was actually going last year for New Year's, and then everybody in the lodges were jacking up their price. I said I'd do it this year, but we're going to wait one more year.
Yeah, there'll still be fish when you get there.
Yeah, I got to get there. It's supposed to be great.
You guys ever get tired of it? You ever get tired of the sport? You've been involved with it for so long. Now it's in the Olympics. Does the sport still have the appeal from when you were in your 20s and first got into it?
Well, I can answer that pretty easily.
Yeah.
I don't get tired of it, but I'm in a little bit different situation because I'm at the end of the planet in a way.
Yeah.
So I don't have quite as much daily contact as say ST does here.
Right. He gets people all day long and bombarding him.
No, not necessarily, though. I mean, you can choose to be involved or not choose to be involved and not go to all the high-profile workouts in San Diego and not hang out at the bike shop and do this and do that. And, you get tired of certain aspects of it, but the sport still offers so much polarity that if you're tired of an Olympic distance, you can go do an off-road triathlon.
Sure.
Do an Ironman, and you can move it around, switch it around,
or
and
do a mountain bike race.
Change your motivations, change your...
Yeah. Kayaking. You do all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Extreme golf.
Extreme golf, Greggy. There's the sport. Tinley actually played in our tournament in Maui.
Mark Allen and I were on a team, right? And we actually set the record for the most amount of strokes in the least amount of time.
They were
136 strokes in less than an hour.
Oh yeah, you guys were like 40-some minutes. You were flying. It's amazing how many times you could swing in that short a period of time. And they were horrendous. Actually, the funniest part was we also put Jimmy Riccatello on a team with Ned Overend. And I came up on one hole, and Riccatello was facing the wrong way on the tee box. He was about to hit it like into somebody's house. These people had no idea how to play the game, Greg. It was pretty funny. You got to come play that, though. You would like it.
I can play, but I can't run, so
you could certainly.
We had carts.
They had carts, baby.
Stuff.
Yeah, they had carts, and then they sort of ran in between shots, so it wasn't bad.
All right.
Hey, Greggy, I want to thank you so much, bud. And again, we've got the new Greg LeMond titanium bike, which will be available coming out in November?
Yeah, November. 2001 model.
Okay.
I have to push it all on this radio show.
Come on, baby. Target LeMond line of accessories, September 18th. The Rev Master, which is available now, starting in July.
Yep.
Greg, let me know which Target you're going to be at so I can go in there and get some cheap shoes for my kids.
Okay. Well, the line's in all the Targets, sir. So, but me individually, I'll be one in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, the 8th of October.
Oh,
okay, I'm there. See,
ST's not going to Ironman this year, so October's pretty open.
We'll surf.
See, ST did his 20th Ironman, so he's like wrapped it up. He's not going to be going over there anymore.
I'm going to Eau Claire to see Greg and Target. Get some cheap running shoes for my kids.
You can always use some new Ugg boots, ST. They have good Uggs there.
They're fake fur on Target. Sorry, it's not the real deal.
Hey, Greggy, thanks so much for staying up late and chatting with us.
Hey, thanks. Hey, guys, have fun in New Zealand, Scott Tinley. I'll
all right.
hopefully see you in San Diego someday.
Okay, buddy.
All right, man.
Adios. Ciao.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of Babbittville Classic Rewind. And don't forget to check out our huge library of interviews with the most decorated triathletes in history on Breakfast with Bob.
Ask me what I want to be, and I will say I will be